Well, good afternoon. There is not going to be activity on this video, but there is some explanation according with the study of language that I want to consider. And there are going to be a lot of terms and a lot of information that I think is going to be really good for understanding what are linguistics. So, um, specifically talking about linguistics and of course the language, we are going to be checking the study of the language. A language, as you may know, is a linguistic code. It includes phonetics, it includes structure, it includes the gesture of your mouth, everything that is considered part of the communication. For example, for human being, the way the more basic way to communicate with other is going to be by linguistics. So yes, basically that is going to be what we are going to be checking today. In linguistics, according with Noam Chomsky, who was a linguistic, he mentions that there are two different kind of in linguistics. Okay, the first one is going to be the externalized language. So in this kind of externalized language is the one that you can use to express what you know. There are some situations or there are some moments where even in English or in Spanish you want to say something, but normally the way that you have it in your mind, the language, the vocabulary that you have in your mind and the way that you structure the sentence is completely different to the way that when you are speaking it produces even the sound, even the words, and it happens all the time, even in Spanish and even in English, and even in French or Portuguese, in any kind of language. Um, the little voice in our head is going to be, on the other hand, the internalized language. Okay, the I language and the E language. There are going to be difference, of course. This one, by the other hand, as I said, is going to be the one that you have in your mind. Maybe all of the words in the word that you can actually know. Even there's some words that you don't really know that or that you may know that are not originally from English. Okay, so for example, you mentioned the word croissant, that is this bread, that is this French bread. And of course, this is going to be a French word, but you add it to your language and you internalize this kind of word. So basically, in summary of these two terms, the internalized language is going to be all the words. Imagine that it's going to be like a big library of words that you have in your mind, like you can see in this image, and all the words that you know are you're going to be using them to structure a sentence. And on the other hand, the externalized language is going to be when you actually select these words inside of your brain, you put them into an order and you produce them. This is going to be according what Noam Chomsky mentions. So there are some components of the language after you just check what is going to be the externalized and the internalized language that you may know. So according with this, and we are going to be checking an image. First, we are going to be having the phonology, and it includes the phonemes or phonemes, that is going to be the basic sounds of the words and even of the letters. They're going to be, you can see, for example, and this is something really amazing for me talking about linguistics, because if you think it, you can see words in Spanish or in English, and you already know how to pronunciate that and how to make a sound that is going to be to externalize what these symbols, what is the sound that these symbols means. Okay, and it happens all the time if you consider not only on letters, but even in some images, like some advices, some kind of signs, all of them have sound, even if you can notice them. I don't know if you remember this meme that you can see the SpongeBob boots, and the meme mentions that you already know what is going to be. You already know. Sorry for that. What is the sound of this? Just with an image. That is a little bit what is phonology, but and this one is more focused on the pronunciation of the words. Okay, so let's read a little bit. It includes stress patterns, tones, intonation in the language. The phonological component also contains rules that regulate how phonemes can be combined in morphemes and words. So, for example, uh, this wasn't copied very well. So, for example, this there are going to be. I don't know if you ever noticed this, but when you use a dictionary on Google and you just put the word, you can see down there like a little um it's like a language or is a vocabulary that you know that what it is, and it includes symbols, slash, points, all of that. And actually that is a sound. We are going to be checking that during the next and in the following classes, but it includes different sounds. And as I've said, even in Spanish or in English, you know that there are some words that change the phonology according with the time. So, for example, think about the word read. The verb read, uh, actually, leer in English is going to be the same in simple present that in past tense. When I'm talking is the same by written, but not on phonology. Because as you can remember, I read and I read. If you're talking in past, yesterday I read this book. But in present tense, I read. And it's written in the same way, but the phonology is going to be different because of the tense. So that is part of the phonology. The phonology studies all of the sounds that includes any words or the vocabulary by itself. Then we're gonna be having the morphology. Um, the morphology is in simple words for you do not uh, get confused or something. It's going to be everything related with the construction of the sentence. Okay, this includes the morphemes and the rules of for combining them to derive to the right, sorry, and inflect words in particular language. For the time being, we define morpheme as the smallest meaningful units of a language. It's not that hard as you may think. So, for example, I just have right here an example is the combination of words. So, for example, if you separate them by syllables in Spanish, there are going to be different sounds. So in other words, I have an example right here. In English, for instance, the morpheme ion, if you just read these three words, three letters, sorry, you're going to be saying ion. But if you add another word, so for example, the word elect, and the result in the noun election is a new vocabulary. So the item derived from the form and one. So ion and elect, if you combine them, the morpheme is going to create another new sound that is going to be election. Okay, so this is basically what the morphemes are. You can combine the words, it's going to be the order of them, and then we are going to be having the syntax, of course. In this case, it includes the rules for putting together the words in phrases and phrases in sentences. So, for example, in English, if you use the sentence, he went to London, synthetically is well formed, okay, but if you use and if you actually create the sentence, or you can notice on some students that they create the sentence in different order, of course this is going to be ill formed. So this is pretty common if you consider it when you are teaching English and you just show them how to create the sentence in past tense, in present tense. I mean, in interrogative, negative, and positive sentence. Okay, you just show them what is the structure of this kind of sentences, and after that, after they try to produce these sentences as well, they're just gonna be most of the time they are gonna be confused, and they are gonna be adding verbs or moving sentences, and if they do not follow the structure of the sentences, it's going to be a mess. But it's pretty common. It's part of the language and it's part of the syntax. So syntax, as you can see right here, it's going to be the combination of the word in the right order. There is going to be an order of sentences, and each of the word must be a place. So for example, I don't know if you remember this, but in the adjectives, when you're teaching or using the adjectives in a sentence, it's necessary to actually make an order for them. So for example, if there is a color, if there is an ability, if there is something that I don't know, talks about its function, etc., there is going to be an order. And syntax is that, is the order of the words in a sentence. I don't know if you remember what I mentioned on the past video, but we have semantics. Semantics is a pretty essential part of the language. That is going to be everything that refers to a topic. Okay, the semantic rules specify which sentences are semantically normal and which are semantically anomalous. For instance, this woman is the mother of three girls is semantically normal, but this woman is the father of three oil wells is anomalous. So it's when you actually mention the sentence that is going to be okay, but you try to add everything that is going to be part of the vocabulary that you're using. I remember that I told you the last class that if you're talking about semantics in, well, at school, you're gonna be talking about chairs, markers, notebooks, computer, boards, markers. I don't know if I mentioned markers, prints, worksheet, etc. So everything right there is going to be part of for part of the semantics. But when you are using the semantics in a sentence, it's important to use exactly the words that you are going to be using. So for example, you can be using the word scissors. Okay, so you can create a sentence saying, "Can you lend me your scissors?" But at the same time, you can create the sentence saying, "Can you lend me the cutting object in your hand?" Okay, so that is going to be semantics, but it is anomalous because you're not using the word that is going to be the one. Okay, those are semantics. Um, in a final summary of everything that I mentioned, and I think this image is going to be a little bit easier for you to understand. We have language. The language is divided in three different ways. We already have here everything that we mentioned in the presentation. We have the sounds, that is going to be the phonetics and phonology. I'm gonna be asking you for a small homework. I already remembered that I said that you are not going to be having homework or anything else. But I just want to be clear this. Can you please research what is the difference between phonetics and phonology? Then in language, I mean, you're gonna be just doing like a definition of each of these terms that we have right here related with language. So we just have sounds, form, and meaning. When we're talking about sounds, we have phonetics and phonology. When we're talking about form, we have the morphology. If you remember what is morphology, and syntax. For morphology is going to be everything, all the words that we already know that we have in our mind, sorry, and we have the syntax that is going to be the clauses, the phrases. What is going to be the order of these ones? We have semantics that is going to be the field, everything that is related with one category, and we are going to be combining them to create sentences. And finally, you're going to be researching what are pragmatics. Okay. Basically, this is going to be everything for today. I hope that this makes sense for you. I'm gonna be just lending you this activity as a summary of everything that we just seen. And if you have any doubt, just let me know it. And you have time to complete this activity till Friday. So have a nice weekend, and I will see you next week. Bye bye.